let's talk a little bit about practice and how you can make the most of the limited time you have to make the biggest difference to your golf game. So often when I see people go to the range, I'm thinking to myself, dude, you're not really practicing at all. All you're doing is warming up. All you're doing is rehearsing what you already currently do. So what does practice need to have? It needs to have real consequence. Why is it that when you go and play your weekend round of golf, you get on the first tee and suddenly you feel so nervous and you feel like you can't hit the shots you've been hitting all week in your practice? Well, the big thing is when you play your round of golf, you have a scorecard in your back pocket, and at the end of each hole, you're going to assess yourself. You're going to be graded. I parred this hole. I triple bogeyed this hole. At the end of your round, you're going to go and compare notes with your friends, and all of us want to do well. We're programmed to want to do well, and that is what puts pressure on us to perform. So in order to try and make the most of our practice, we need to try and mimic that situation. And we're never going to be able to do it fully. That's just impossible. But we want to get as close to it as we possibly can. So what do most golfers do when they get to the range? They get a bunch of baskets of balls, and likely, I suspect, they think that the more baskets of balls they hit, the more and better they've practiced. But in reality, that's not the case at all. So imagine the scenario of a golfer having a basket of balls. He'll get near the end of that basket of balls, and suddenly this golfer hits a really nice shot. What tends to happen from there? The golfer leaves the rest of the basket of balls and moves on, leaving those for the next person. Why? Because they were afraid of the consequence that would occur on the very next shots. And in reality, when you're playing a basket of balls like this, the only shot that genuinely has consequence is the last shot, because it's the only shot on which you're not going to be able to be like in tennis and just play your second serve, your second chance. And in golf, we don't get second chances. Every single shot you hit out on the golf course counts. It's what differentiates golf from so many other sports. So back to consequence. How do you practice with consequence? Well, one example would be if you are trying, for example, to develop a push draw shot. So for me as a right-handed golfer, if I'm trying to learn to hit the ball starting to the right, then curving to the left some amount, without it crossing the target line and finishing to the left of the target, I could say to myself, okay, Phil, here's your target. You're going to try and hit 5 shots in a row that start to the right of the target, curve left some amount without crossing the target line. And if I manage to do that on those 5 shots, then I've satisfied the requirement of my practice. I've achieved what I set out to do. I could do that the following week in my practice, and the following week in my practice. And each time I'm trying to get better and better at satisfying that requirement I set myself. And obviously there's tons of different examples you can do. This is just one. So the first thing you need is consequence. How do you then add to this consequence? How do you make it more beneficial? Well, number 2, your practice needs to be based on a fact and not just a feeling, not just an emotion. It can't just be something that is subjective. It has to be objective. So my consequence is that I've hit 5 out of 5 as I wanted, starting right and curving left. How can I use that to my advantage? Well, when I look down at my piece of paper at the end of my practice session where I've written, yes, completed 5 out of 5, I can go, okay, well, that is a fact that I'm actually doing this quite well. And so when I'm out on the golf course, what's going to happen? I'm going to be much more positive, much more content in what I'm doing, because I know that in my practice, I've been able to achieve this over and over. What are the odds of it transferring to the golf course? They're now much, much higher than if all I'd done on the golf course was, on a practice range, was beat balls. So you need to have a consequence, and this means it's going to be fact-based, and out of that fact-based approach, you're going to start to be able to build confidence, because you can see results. So often I'm told, how do I get better at golf? How do I start to feel confident? I'm going to try and artificially do this. I'm going to try and will the ball into a hole. I'm going to stand on the fairway. I'm going to say to myself, I am going to hit this fairway. I'm definitely going to hit this fairway. I must hit this fairway. Unfortunately, when it doesn't happen, and invariably sometimes it doesn't happen, your brain knows you've been lying to yourself. It knows that that's not true. So you can't base things on a projection of what positivity would be, of what an outcome could be. You've got to base it on your real experiences. So I've practiced this drill over and over. Each time I've come to the range, I've been able to grade it, assess it, and every single time I'm seeing better and better scores. I'm achieving it more and more often, and that means I'll be able to take it to the golf course. So just do these simple things when you're on the practice range. Try and devise some kind of little game, some kind of skills challenge. Make it numerical so that you can have a piece of paper in your hand, simulate having a scorecard in your hand, write down the score, and this will lead to positive changes and furthermore to an enormous amount of confidence that you weren't able to have prior to this when you're out on the golf course, so you can beat your buddies. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video and would like to see me do more of these, then please do subscribe. I really appreciate it. Likewise, you can visit my website, philippebonfantigolf.co.uk, where there is tons more information for you to play your best golf, as well as info on how you can work with me in person or online using Skillist.